The Basque country, absolutely glorious, particularly at this time of year. Gorgeously verdant, and it's drawn out a response today, not necessarily because of the terrain, but look at that, a very, very happy boy. Steve Cummings doing a superb job, the Brit mugging the field at the very last. We had a breakaway that had been up the road for much of the day, and in fact they'd done a more than a reasonable job of hoovering up the points from both the climbs and indeed the intermediate sprints, so much so that Stefan de Niffel found himself not only part of the breakaway but also at the end in the red leader's jersey. So late responses there were, and they were responded to as well. Great efforts. You saw Navarro once more for Cofidis going away. The aerial shot on the sinuous descents, they stripped out the motorcycles and decided to leave us with a longer view, which was great. Pierre Roland had a go, but the one that really stuck and the killer blow in the end was from this man, Steve Cummings, coming home again. Classic peach of poaching, which he seems to be becoming world famous for.
With a flatter finish, and I wanted to try every time. The first stage I made a little bit mistake, tactical error on the climb, and I was too far back, and today I managed to get it right.
So Steve-O delivered another blow. He's polished up his celebrations as well. And there's our leader Landa. Steve Cummings can't help himself. Stage win on the Tour de France, of course, when he broke French hearts at the very last. Up to a plateau, I remember, absolutely fantastic. Did it, of course, in the Vuelta, first time 2012. Adriatico, and of course, now in the Basque country as well. Really is outstanding. There's your King of the Mountains from as of yesterday. In fact, more than that, de Niffel has been pretty handy when it comes to climbs, but getting out today likewise and taking the category one that started off. What is a jagged profile today. There's Mikel Landa, the leader. You can see just his golden jersey popping out from underneath his warmer jacket. It's not raining too badly today. We've had a little bit of drizzle, nothing too serious. You won't see any standing water on the road, but it is cold and there's a northwesterly wind blowing. Been a headwind as well, cross headwind or a headwind for much of the day as we head towards Orio. So we're going from east to west. It's northwesterly, so it's been hampering them. We are, however, going to be on a series of loops fairly shortly, taking on the Alto de Aya. Now that climb has to be taken 3 times. There's 3 roads up it, and each has a different character. And there is most definitely a more difficult route, which maxes at about 13 to 14%. So it's a proper kicker. And the 3 climbs of it come very, very late in the day. There are a couple of non-categorized climbs as well. I'll talk you through it when we get there. The Alto de Zugugari is one of them, and then of course the non-categorized climb just at the very last, about 1.2 k's from home. And you can see the riders want to keep an eye on exactly where these peaks and troughs come. And if you look at the stage profile, you'll see it can bite. It really, we talk about shark's teeth, but check that out. There it is. They took on the Jesquibel right at the beginning of the day, the Akali as well, the Aya for the first time of asking. And then, of course, those 3 climbs, including the Garati at the end, and twice more over the Aya. And then you see that little kick at the very last. That's the kicker we were telling you about. It may well be in the pants for some, because it's 7% with 1 kilometre. It extends for about 1k. When you come off it, 1.2 from home, you have a 700-metre descent and then flat for 500. So anyway, it drew out a breakaway today. It was always going to be a breakaway kind of day, and so lots of teams thought, you know what, let's get a man up there. Unfortunately, too many teams decided to play the option. And in the end, they all turned out to be jokers, except for Tim Bellens, who was in every single one of the breaks. Carlos Verona, likewise, don't want to put him down too much either. But finally, those 2 managed to make it stick, and they were the only ones from the original breakaway that are still out front after a recapture a re-break, another recapture, and then finally after 2 hours we've got our breakaway, and you're looking at them right now. Nearly 3 minutes they've got on the chasers with 50 kilometres to go. Sky doing much of the chasing because of Landa. They don't want to do anything silly because Marte is only 3 minutes and 47 down. You're looking at the back end here of Christophe Riblon. Powerful, handy guy to have in a breakaway, but unfortunately for Riblon, he also finds himself in the break with the nearest man to him. You can just see ahead of him there. That's Tim Wellens, the 24-year-old Belgian. And it doesn't matter what Perito can do. He's won here back in 2010. He's not going to win today, I wouldn't have thought. Not with Wellens up the road. In fact, I don't think anyone is really going to have the beating of Wellens. It looks as near a certainty as you can possibly have with a breakaway, Magnus Backstedt.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. It's going to be a question of how the peloton manage these guys out there, and like you said, Mate is one of the guys that poses a potential slight threat to the general classification. So they're not going to want much more than a minute to the bunch by the time they get across to the finish line, and that can become quite tricky to kind of manage and bring back enough, but not bringing back all of them. And yeah, it can be just about anything out of that one. So we'll see. There might be a few of the other teams as well who have got an eye on to this particular stage, and I think every time we don't have an uphill finish, there's an awful lot of riders who are hungry and keen on a stage win. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw a couple of other teams come up and really start working with Sky or for Sky effectively to try and bring this group back.
It's only 2 minutes and 52, and you're thinking, well, that's an awful long way out. And if it weren't for the quality of the group that we've got up here, then we'd probably be talking in other terms. But Tim Wellens, such a powerful character in situations such as this, and he's proved it so often before, Magnus. Why would he not do so again today? He's worked hard enough to be in the break, hasn't he? He's here by rights.
Well, he's definitely here by rights, and I think with today's particular cause, it's difficult to sort of randomly end up in a breakaway. There's no question about that. You know, you need your legs with you, and really feeling quite good as well. So otherwise, yeah, it's going to be pretty much a nightmare to make it into this break.
Vicioso's here. Now, he was runner-up way back in 2007. He's quite long in the tooth these days. He's 38 years of age. Juan Jose Cobo took that year, the 47th edition. So it was a long time ago, but I don't know. Maybe today just said to him, let's turn the clock back. That was a squeaky moment for Tim Wellens.
It certainly was.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Different road surfaces you can see as well. There's a little bit of leaf debris here. Not leaf debris, but spring buds. They have husks, and you get a bit of sap as well. If you've ever parked your car under one of these sapping trees, it's not nice. It's almost like it's sugar coated, but that gets very greasy, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It looked like it was dry going into the corner as well, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. It wasn't exactly.
Yeah, it's a nasty thing to deal with.
It usually tends to go, isn't it? It's either dry or it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Just checking out a little bit more on Vicioso. Finished ahead of David Millar back in 2011 on the Giro d'Italia to Rabaglio. He is a breaker, Vicioso, but I don't know. These days, it might be just a little bit beyond him at the age of 38. But then again, you keep your words close to your chest, especially when you've got the likes of Horner, etc., running well in Spain. Although we're in the Basque country, I know, don't need to offend anybody. 47.2 kilometres then from home. Just under 3 minutes is the gap. Seems to be holding nicely for the breakaway. Sky doing a policing job, but not much more than that, at least for the time being. That may change. We'll see. Welcome back. 45, just shy of that, kilometres remaining, and as you can see, there's no great hurry behind. I think everyone has more or less accepted that this breakaway may well be allowed to have its head. It'll be interesting when we get to the Alto de Aia for the second time. We've already been over it once, by the way. That was about 20 k's ago. Next climb will be the Garate, and that itself is no laughing matter. It maxes at 13.5%, that kind of average. A 9% average over the 3K, so short and sharp, as all the climbs are here in the Basque Country. But there's been plenty of riders, Magnus, over the last couple of days who've actually been found out on these short, sharp tests at this time of year.
Yeah, it's certainly thrown a big mix into the race, and a couple of the sort of, should we call them favourites that weren't actually anywhere near as good as what we thought they were going to be, and some guys going better. There's been speculation that Orica have actually blown it on a couple of occasions. Do you see it that way yesterday? I thought it was a good effort by Adam Yates. It just, and he finished ahead of quite a number of names with a greater history, although Adam himself has done some fantastic work. We know San Sebastian. Incidentally, today's stage is a regular feature of the San Sebastian. So yeah, he knows the terrain. I think it's a bit unkind, really, to say that Orica Greenwich have failed, because they've given it a good shot, haven't they? Yeah, I think they definitely have done, and Simon Garrett's now finishing second twice on a stage, and clearly they were very active yesterday beforehand with Adam, like you said, and it was just that one hilltop finish, or I don't know if we're allowed to call it mountaintop finish, although it was only
didn't feel like it, did it?
No, it didn't really. So anyway, it was an uphill finish.
Yes.
And
we'll go with that.
And they're just maybe just slightly off their absolute best there, I'd say.
Yeah, well, it's early season, so let's not be hard on them, is what I'm trying to say. Youngest of our breakaway is just back to the car right now, and he's just handed in his sweeties. 22 years of age, is Simone Petilli in the pink and blue. Took the Rondizar last year, and that is not a bad race to take, is it?
No, it's definitely one of the hard young man. What should we call them?
Not debutants, but
no, not quite. But it's still a very, very tough race to do, and mountainous as well. It's down in the foothills of the Pyrenees, so there's enough climbing to be done on that one.
It is, and here he is, and he's in sort of veteran company, really. Just looking through those who are around him, Tim Wellens himself is no veteran, really, although he's been around for a long time with some great success, but 24 years of age. We keep looking at Perito, and I kind of feel sorry for him. He's won here before, back in 2010. He went on a long ranger. He's showed none of that capability in this race so far, has he, Magnus?
No, it's not been going at his best, and he's still struggling. Seems to be struggling to get himself back into his sort of absolute top level. But there's still enough time before we head over to the Ardennes Classics and start going, giving it a go at Amstel and
I thought you were going to say the retirement pastures, but no, I think
that's way too early. I don't like the way everyone sort of talks about potential retirement and when are you going to retire and why. This sort of stuff.
You faced it a long time, haven't you?
Well, yeah, but even the question, someone journalist posing the question, when are you going to retire, and considering retirement and this and that, I think that's up to the rider himself to announce when he's good and ready.
There you go. So put everyone back in their box. Magnus, when was the last time when you gave your apples a good pounding?
What are you talking about?
It's a cider growing museum here, the Saga-Doteccia Museum, and in fact we've just been by it, and I just feel like getting a ticket and going and trying some of the local brew, because apparently they do an excellent cider here.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, apparently it's wet enough. You get great apples in the United Kingdom, of course, and there's a few apple groves over your way near the Welsh border, as I'm sure you know. So yeah, but here it's a speciality. Is the old
it's a
apple
special
tipple.
procedure of making this cider as well. Then
here we are. The gentlemen pound the apples in what look like hollowed out tree trunks. It's all very artisanal, and then they tip it off and filter it, and then they serve it to Magnus and me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's wrong with that question? One of your eyebrows went up there.
No. I've stopped being sort of shocked by all this.
Hey, here's a promontory. Now, would you buy a house there, especially with the waves pounding underneath? Now, I'm not sure how many houses have been lost here, but it may well be that it looks to me like sandstone, which is pretty handy. It also looks like it's been capped with concrete. So the San Temilio Hermitage has got a few more years left, thank goodness, before the monks have to take a swim.
Wow, that looks pretty special.
Yeah, I wonder if they do special swimming cassocks. What do you think?
Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah.
I reckon some of the building regulations in sort of Northern Europe may oppose to that particular building there, but you know, just a wild guess.
Well, apparently the fryer fishes straight out of the back window. Fryer fish on a Friday.
There you go.
40.9 kilometres to go. 2 minutes and 36. The waves pounding the sea wall here, and these guys, well, pounding the road. They're doing a great job of it. Spectacular pictures we've got here today. Isn't this lovely?
They are very nice indeed.
Having a paddle later?
No, I think I'll skip that in that kind of condition, but certainly looks like it's windy and hard enough for a bike race.
Certainly does. Thanks for your company, by the way. All of you with us. Whoozy Madness has just picked himself up off the floor. He's opening a bottle of cider as we speak. Possibly a non-alcoholic version, knowing that Whoozy likes to keep himself fit and ready for action. There we are. You see the coastal defences there. Dirty, great big blocks of whatever it is, just to dissipate the power of the waves before they hit the sea wall. But they're still smacking into it, causing a spray to pop up here. You'll be glad to know if you own a vehicle in the locale, it's generally dry enough not to suffer from rust. On that thought, take a break. Sky doing a decent job of, well, holding the holding pattern, I think it's fair to say. 38.9 kilometres to go. Magnus, we've got the Garate coming up. Again, short, sharp shock, and some parts of it sharper than others. Not nice.
Well, it starts off being quite steep the first kilometre or so, and then levels out a bit, and then we got a very steep final 800 metres or so of 13.5% or thereabouts. So yeah, it's quite a few nasty little short, very steep climbs around in this part of the world.
There's been a bit of landslip here, and in fact it looks like land rip. As you saw, the sea just still, no matter how you defend against it, actually does of course ultimately erode, no matter what you do, it seems. Unlike this gap, it's sort of holding at 2.5 minutes just for now. 38.1 k's remaining, and they're doing a good job. They're relaying as a team time trial, which is what you've got to do when you're in a breakaway. Just looking at our wearer of the blue jersey, Nicholas Ede, today on behalf of Stefan Denifel, who also owns the Meta Valontes jersey for the time being. Well, we've got a dredger, but we've also got some fancy yachts in this part of the world. It's active sailing, I think it's fair to say, when you get out on the Atlantic coast. Very much more benign on the Med, where the sort of top money goes, I think it's fair to say. But the Basque Country, it's a grisly old place, a bit like their casseroles. We won't go back there. We had badger casserole yesterday, and it didn't look very appetising, I must admit. 37.4 kilometres to go, and that 2.5 minute marker, Magnus, it is a cushion, but you wouldn't really want to sit on it, especially with the climbs that we still have to take. First of the next series in 4K's time. Yeah,
you're right. 2.5 minutes is not an awful lot of time when you're looking at the difficulty that we have lying up ahead of us. So I still have a feeling that we'll see a few teams getting on the front and starting to drive this on a bit in the final the 25-30 kilometres or so, just to try and bring it back. And Rollins is having a go.
He is. He wants a few more points, I'll be bound. I don't think he wants to shake everybody out, not from this distance. With 37 kilometres to go, we are on our climb, or at least the foot of it, as you can see. About 13, maybe a little bit more percent at this point. And this is the Balenciaga Museum. Inside there,
what do they do there?
It's got an enormous, slightly broken longboat. I'm making that up because I'm not quite sure what's housed inside, but But anyway, here's your attack. It's a shame we cut away at this particular moment, but here is your declared climb, and he wants a piece of it, Magnus.
Yeah, it certainly does, and those signs there, which they put out so nicely in Spain, tells you that this is the start of your climb, and usually tells you how far you got to go as well. Sometimes when you're feeling good, it's nice to have them. When you're really hanging on the last breath, then it tends to be slightly demoralising.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised. And it's Christophe Riblon that's gone for this. Interesting that Wellens struck into it early. Here we are, 14% it says. It's actually 13.38, but we'll allow them that latitude, especially as on some of the curves, and a bit of a broken surface as well. Not nice to deal with. And suddenly we're coming out above the rooftops, as you can see, and heading towards what is a blank sky this afternoon. It probably is tonight somewhere where you're watching, down under. I know we've got plenty of viewers down there on Eurosport Australia. Nice to have your company. Right now it's a lockout at the front, as you can see. Sky with Movistar, and Contador wants to have a little look as well. Why not?
Quite a few of the teams are getting themselves together near the front there now, coming into to this climb. So they're still very nervous, very cagey about the climbing and making sure that they're all in position, because there isn't an awful lot to play with up in the top end of the general classification.
It's raining. I don't think that was sea spray. In fact, the helicopter's picked up a bit now, so it would have had to have been a heck of a wave, or indeed quite a dropped bid on if it was going to splash the camera lens. So we're heading up and into the wet. As you can see, we're not at the top of our climb just yet. In fact, it's easing up to about 6.5%. It then kicks again to the steepest part as we get to the crest. And then we have a long downhill run, longish anyway, about 7 kilometers before we take a non-categorized climb that's called the Alto Zudugaria. It's about 4 k's long, and it averages about 5 to 6%. Any other race possibly would have given it a categorization, but not here. Sky still grinding into it. Landa won here in the past, but I don't think that's going to be the case today. When he did take it, it was from a break, and I think, Magnus, that everyone was right. They fought so hard to be in the break at the top of the day because they knew it had a chance of making it, and even though it's only 2 minutes and 18 seconds, I still think this break has got a great opportunity here.
Well, it's certain days are more difficult to get into the break, and certainly because of, like you said, today is a good opportunity. If you're far enough back on the general classification, you'd be allowed to get yourself out in the break, and Sky, obviously looking after the yellow jersey, would be quite happy not to have to chase you to all that hard. But today, obviously, with Mate in there at 3 minutes and 47, it's a bit different. They're kind of going to have to keep a bit of a check on those guys. And if you're looking at the general classification as of this morning, we have the first 15 riders are still only 22 seconds apart, which means there's still an awful lot to race for, and a lot of guys that can make even a couple of seconds will take them a good 5-6 steps further up on GC.
Yeah, absolutely right, Magnus. Tomorrow is the Queen's stage, and again Wellens has another look-see to try and inject a little bit of pace. And the first to respond is Ethics Quickstep's Carlos Verona, who just latches onto him. Wants to take more than just the points, I think. He wants to engage this descent reasonably soon. We're starting to see a little bit more moisture up here. There's localised rainfall, as you can see, particularly underneath the arboreal cover, where it tends to hold on to it. And they're saying, come on, let's all circulate. And pushing down on the knees is Christophe Riblon saying, look, mate, these are 35-year-old knees. But it's Luis Mate who was asking for help. He's 32 years of age himself. Some guys are feeling a bit crook, and it's interesting that Wellens keeps going when he feels he can, and then just gets knocked back again when the road pitches up once more.
Yeah, I don't think Wellens wants to have anyone with him getting over the top here, and as we're getting towards the next couple of climbs, which are a lot harder. Well, maybe not the next climb, because it's still around about 8% average. but certainly the final one is going to be an absolute brute of a climb.
Oh, Vicioso is struggling, as you can see, just off the back of this group right now. Looks like he may well be the first to be taken, unless he's got some real descending legs on him today. Very dirty road surface there, you saw. Looked like a bit of muck spreading, and there's your king of the mountains, looking a bit less than the king of this mountain.
Yeah, certainly not looking his best, but we've got to remember he was in every move there was this morning, and going very hard indeed to try and get himself into the breakaway. Still picked up the first and the second king of the mountain, so the first and the third category climb that he's picked up on the way today, but clearly run out of legs at the pointy end of the race.
Here we are, we're down to 4, Magnus, and it's Cofidis with Mate. We've got Verona from Ethics Quickstep. We've got Tim Vellens, who's managing to latch on, despite little punches that he keeps injecting and then easing back in. And Christophe Riblon, the aforementioned, who seems to be engaging in an argument with Luis Angel Mate at the moment as to work rate. Vellens comes alongside and says something like, "Yeah, you tell him." Not quite sure. Petit, the youngster, didn't manage to keep up. In fact, he was the first to go, with Vicioso of Katusha next to join him as slightly divorced from this group. He's staying with it though, Vicioso. Don't know where Petilli is, but I suspect that the chasers may well catch him reasonably soon. Sky still setting that tempo. Magnus, let's just dwell for a moment, while we've got a moment, on what remains in this race. We've got the Queen Stage tomorrow, with a real punishing climb towards the end, but plenty of climbing throughout the day. 2, 4, 6, 8 climbs in total, ending with the big one. And then, of course, it's a time trial also with climbing on stage 6. A lot of climbing.
There's a lot of climbing to be done. So yeah, this race is far from over.
So through they go, just rolling over the top, and it's Mate, who's been doing most of the haranguing, that takes the lion's share of the points this time by category 2. And so we start our 7k descent. Sailing through, chasing down the escape group that they used to be part of, Vicioso, followed by Simone Petilli, and indeed the rest of the peloton still a couple of minutes further down this test, which is the Alto de Garate. Now, we've already done the Alto de Aya once today, and we'll be going up the same incline once more that we took, and then a more focused one before our descent back down towards our finish line today. Looking forward to it. We've been trying to have a chat about the last 2 stages, Magnus. Tomorrow's the big sort-out day, no doubt about that, but it's not going to be one until the very last.
No, I don't think it's going to be one until the time trial. Although tomorrow is a brute of a day. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 climbs to go effectively from just above sea level up to 600 meters, and then there's a whole bunch of climbs in between that partly that we can see here. They're going up to about 400 meters, but then usually the Spanish and Basque man that draws the stage profile just doesn't want to waste ink and put all the little ones in.
It's true. There's so many tests that really in any other race would be a serious obstacle that's of note. Here it's almost like, well, what do you expect? It's the Basque country. It's quite outstanding. So tomorrow is going to be one heck of a day, and I think that many of the GC guys are probably minded not to put in too much effort in trying to chase down a break where the threat is not overly significant today.
No, but I think there's going to be an interesting tactical game being played out tomorrow, with some riders very confident in the time trialing ability, and certainly on this type of a time trial that's still very difficult to deal with, and some riders clearly not happy about time trialing at all, and with that will want to try and tear the peloton apart and try and finish themselves, put themselves in a position where they have some sort of a buffer against the slightly faster time trialists. So this could be just about anything happening tomorrow with regards to attacks and who's going to respond and who's not, and how deep are they going to go, and so on. So I'm expecting a very interesting stage tomorrow.
I'm expecting an interesting one. I'm also very much looking forward to it. I'll be looking forward to seeing how Kirienka goes in this Olympic year, of course, with the time trial, although it's not an overly familiar one with a lot of climbing involved in it. In fact, they're saying that time trialing bikes probably won't be used, and most riders will use their road bikes. I'd be interested to see if Kirienka goes for his time trialing bike, to be honest. He has known to take them onto the peaks and troughs in the past. But that's, of course, stage 6. We've got 5 to deal with tomorrow, and we still haven't finished with today. Although the gap, as you have seen for quite some time, at 2.5 minutes, seems almost set in stone. We'll find out, won't we? And indeed whether this breakaway, which has now reassembled itself on the descent, can indeed take the remaining 2 categorised climbs and 4 climbs in total, which leads us to the line. We'll be there in 31 kilometres time, where we'll have our answer. Peloton now engaged on the descent that our breakaway have been enjoying for quite some time. They're still coming down and back into town. As you can see, we're coming into Zaruts Urumar. Urumar sounds like some kind of farmer's market where you can only spend euros. It's my guess anyway, but it's probably wrong. 2 minutes and 22, the pack are descending reasonably well. That gap just starting to be trimmed ever so gently, as you can see. And oh look, come on Wellens, they know he's the big threat. I think they want to put a bit of pressure on him, and they're asking him to do some work, for goodness sake. Vizioso, the man who says get up the road. If being part of a successful breakaway is essentially being or operating as a team time trial, some are taking longer goes than others on the front, and Tim Wellens doesn't want to add too much to this breakaway, but everyone else in the break is very much aware that he is the threat today, and so he's being harangued by one rider after another. Angel Vizioso of Katusha, the first to say, come on, get up there and do your turn, as he came back down the line trying to drop in, but Wellens was just not moving, not doing anything. Wasn't prepared to move forward, and kind of dropped back and said, go on, you drop in front of me, which meant that Vizioso would have taken a turn earlier than he. Vizioso wasn't impressed, and basically I think he said, you know, you're the number one. Certainly he held up a finger to Tim Wellens. So I'm assuming it was that you're number one within this group. He's actually number 88, Tim Wellens. Vizioso was obviously not impressed. Anyway, we're telling you what we've been watching during the break. Right now, our breakaway has 2 minutes and 18. It's starting to get trimmed down ever so slightly, and I'm wondering whether just fatigue is going to be the wearing element for this breakaway, that and the arguments that they seem to be engaging in.
Well, there's always an element of fatigue, and although it's not the longest stage of that these guys will ever do, but it's still hard terrain, and the pace is constantly on, so they're having to work hard, and the bunch isn't going slow behind them, so if they don't keep on working, then all of a sudden they're going to find themselves in a position where they get caught anyway. We will see. I still have a feeling that we're going to see some form of attacks going on by some of the main favourites. Whether that stays away or whether they actually manage to do some damage to each other on the climb, that's a different matter. But I have a feeling that we're going to come back to another very select front group finish.
And do you think Tim Wellens is going to be part of that select front group?
Well, I think that select front group is not going to be the breakaway that's there currently. It's going to come back down to about 40-50 riders, if that, and then a bunch sprint from that, really.
The terracotta sands of the locale, suggesting the sandstone has indeed provided the beaches here locally. Why wouldn't it? So natural beaches, which is nice. 26.3 k's to go, and as you can see, there is a right way and a wrong way to go around that roundabout, and bunny hops onto concrete and then finding yourself stuck behind cars. It's not great. You can. It's very easy to find a pedestrian by doing that. They were thinking of banning the freestyle use of cycle paths during the tour stages. It never became an edict, but there was a few worrying moments nonetheless when riders were trying to find some road space and actually just bunny hopping onto what essentially became a place where the fans were standing. We had a few squeaky moments in the last tour, but it hasn't become an edict, I've noticed. Not
well, you know what? The riders will still go anywhere if they feel that it's desperate for them to get to the front. They will still make whatever move they can on whatever hard surface that they feel confident on putting their tyres onto. And sometimes that's bike paths, you know, pavements, whatever they can really find. And there was a motion being put into place about effectively penalising the riders that went on to bike paths, and there was some discussions up in Belgium about a year or two ago about one particular section of road with cobblestones in the middle, and then there was a very narrow bike path on the just on the right hand side of that, and most of the guys tried to get onto the bike path and rode on that one, and there was a few people complaining, certainly the guys that rode in the middle, which is obviously harder work, but I don't know whatever came out of it.
And goes up, just asking for some service. That's Luis Angel Mate. Sky now found, 25 seconds. And in reasonably short order off that last descent. Here comes Francis Desjeux. Now they've got Thibaut Pinot. They've also, within the Parthenon, Sebastian Reichenbach. Now, I mentioned him a couple of times, Magnus. He's a young guy who's been going very, very well indeed. In fact, he missed out on the Tirreno Adriatico podium by a solitary second in a time trial. He's not supposed to be a time trialist. Neither are Francis Desjeux, but they put that to bed well and truly this season. You've spoken about how much they have put into their time trialling ability. Here's a question for you. Sebastian Reichenbach, we've been talking about big riders. He's one of them. Can he hold on tomorrow on the Queen stage, stage 5, and then will he rekindle his time trialling skills in the last? Two very big questions.
It's a big question whether he's going to be able to hold on to that. But
tomorrow we'll find out.
Yeah, but I certainly think he looks like he's climbing well at the moment. I'm still not sure about this whole big guy thing, because he's about 2 foot tall and weighs.
Here we go. Another little test. Welcome back. We are. We've just been over the Alto di Zudagari. We've had an intermediate sprint. We were watching it just as we went to the break there, but it's of very little consequence for the intermediate sprints competition, which is still being led by De Neffel. He got up for it, but just almost to add insult to the injurious pace that they are having to set here with a minute and 50 remaining. The Selendra Viaduct. Come on, guys, let's start circulating. Oh, this is not going to happen. It seems that Mate really believes he's got something today, but he can't do it on his own. Well, Angel Vizioso and Tim Wellens have just engaged in a bit of shoulder war, and I'm not really quite sure what's going on between those two, but they need to give each other a bit of space. They're busy having a chat at the back at the moment, and to be honest, I don't think it's pleasantries or indeed Christmas card addresses that they're swapping. They're not in love with each other at all today, are they?
No, there seems to be a little bit of something going on there, but that's part of the game, and it's also part of trying to psych your competitor out as well, and just put him in his place, if you will.
Gap's really coming down, Magnus. They've lost almost a minute as they take on this test right now. It's the Aya, and this time by it's the easier route up it. Let's put it that way. Maxing at 10.5%, but then because of in fact, There we are. It says 19 at the very peak. They're messing with me, Magnus. And in fact, they're messing with the route map as well.
They're messing with us, I think, Carlton. They've just thrown in a very steep section right at the very bottom here. Yeah, but 8.5% average average that there's also a couple of fairly flat sections that that they're dealing with. So this is by far the easier side of the Aya. Although, as you see here now, all these teams are coming up, and that road that they've just ridden was fairly narrow. And without everyone, all of the favourites are going to want to be right near the front, or effectively on the front, to try and keep themselves out of trouble. Because when you're turning onto narrow road like that, and it's very steep, then all it takes is for someone to change from the big ring to the little ring, and the chain jumps off, and all of a sudden you've got a sitting duck in the middle of the road with no one actually being able to go around them, and you find yourself having to chase for the next 10k to get back on again.
There's a bit of movement, as you saw. Maybe Contador does want to have another little testing day, testing himself, and in fact he's called for action from Tinkoff. As you can see, the map they just showed us, by the way, is the wrong map. That's the map for the last climb up the Aya. This is the penultimate climb up the Aya. This is the easy way up, and they showed us the more difficult way. So keep that map in your mind and use it again, as I hope they might, when it actually is true. Nonetheless, this is a reasonable test, as Magnus, we can see.
Yeah, I think the first part of this climb is still at some 10 and a bit %, so it's certainly not flat, and everyone is starting to sort of get themselves into position. Roman Kreuziger coming up here on in the yellow from Tinkoff, just to start pressing on a bit. But the problem they got with Kreuziger is that he's still at 2 minutes, so he's not really doing anything by trying to attack, other than potentially providing a springboard for someone like Contador if he was to go really hard.
You can see also looking a little bit lively here is Danny Navarro. He wants to join the fun, as you can see, but every time he tries to get by, they just squeeze him in on the side of the road. The man in red for Cofidis. You can see as well, also there is Rui Costa, the Portuguese champion, almost alongside him actually. That's in about 4th place in this group, sort of dead centre of the road. They're chugging up this one nicely. Your thoughts about yesterday's winner, Steve Cummings? Steve-O did a great job, didn't he? This is not his kind of day, but it may well be. It may well open up for others of his ilk.
Well, it all depends on how Steve is actually going and how he felt this morning, because I think this is still very much within Steve's capability, but I doubt that he'll finally be able to do that same kind of surprise jump again like he did yesterday, and that was such a beautifully timed attack and a quality effort at the end of a hard stage as well to hold on to that.
Well, it doesn't look like Barguil, but there we are, declared as such. And away he goes off the front. How's Barguil doing overall, by the way? I must double check.
He's sitting 26 seconds down.
He is indeed. Well, he is a threat, and if he tries to make that stick, if indeed it was Barguil, I couldn't quite...
Yeah, it looked like his riding style, definitely.
I don't know, maybe he's been spending lots of time in the sunshine. He really had a look of one of the other members of his team about him, but 20 Ks to go, 1:09. Well, I'm not suggesting they're cooked just yet, but I don't know, the entree has certainly happened. There we go, and guess what? Angel Vicioso, the man who's doing most of the complaining, that's probably why he's been suffering out there. He's probably angry with himself. That's what they say about bullies, isn't it? He probably doesn't like himself. There we go. So yeah, he's not having a fun time. Let's put it that way. It is Warren Barguil. He does look absolutely toasted, doesn't he? Unless look at that. He's got the same sort of burnt pallor that I have after a few days in the sunshine. So bless him. Away he goes. And indeed, this man as well wants to be part of the fun. It's Kreuziger, I think.
It is Kreuziger again, yeah.
Having a push off here. And why not? Kreuziger's got some options himself during this race. He's 2 minutes and 10 down, so he might be given some leeway.
I think he will give him some leeway, but if he can get across to Barguil and actually kind of help Barguil a bit by taking a few turns, and that will put added pressure onto Team Sky, which means that they might blow up a bit earlier and lose all the riders, and effectively leave Landa then exposed to for Contador to have a go at.
Well, they are having a go. This is proper stuff, albeit on the easier run. You'll be seeing this run the opposite direction a little bit later on, or at least part of it, as we head back down to town. Now, when we get to the top of this test, we then go into a little plateau section, and then we kick up again with a long descent, Magnus. After we've dealt with the plateau, the approach to the top of the next run up the Aya, it's a shorter route. It's only 1.8 kilometres. But as you saw, it was absolutely dreadful at the peak. In fact, this looks like that 19% was about right, so maybe our original maps were in error. And here we are from our breakaway, and I'm afraid it's Pertilli again who's just starting to suffer. The motorcycle should catch up with the others, and here they are. And no surprise to see Mate of Cofidis. It's Wellens on the front. That nearest to us is Christophe Riblon, and just ahead of him is Carlos Verona. Nice mix. The 24-year-old Belgian Wellens, I think, is still, of those guys, the pick. And I think if the likes of Kreuziger get up, and Barguil likewise, he's capable of staying with it. But look what's happening right now, Magnus. Yeah,
a bit of action there coming from Astana, and it looked like on the riding style to me that was Fabio Aru having a go.
He's got the old the duck's feet sticking out, and indeed it's him. There he is. So Aru buries himself, just dragging others to stay with it. Well, Sergio Henao was always going to be one who might fancy a day like this, and Sky would probably think about him, as well as Landa, who's wearing the leader's jersey. Aru, I'm afraid, those the familiar way that his feet sort of stick out, especially when he's laying on the pressure. It's a strange one, but it seems to work for him. And Wellens looks like he wants to crest this one and take it in. They've got 1k to go until the top, as you can see. So there is their announcement. And only a Category 2 this. And a couple of outriders up front. It's cold, Magnus. They won't be feeling it too badly this deep into the race. And we've got a policeman here from Lotto Soudal also coming to the fore.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be feeling the cold here now. The work rate is certainly high enough for all of these guys to be generating enough body heat. But the descent is going to be an interesting one, and then obviously we've got this final ascent of up to the same very peak here, the Aya, which 12.2% average for 1.8 kilometers. That's an absolute brute.
Tom Jelter-Slagter was showing an interest there for Cannondale. That's an interesting scenario. He is on good form as well. Pierre Roland was part of the early break along with Michael Woods for Cannondale, but it hasn't really happened for them. And here we go. We've got a little bit of movement, and starting it's Angel Mate, who's gone up the road there. Just chasing onto them is Wellens right now, along with Verona. He's leading just for now and getting back in. Pertilli won't give up, the young 22-year-old Italian, and I'm pleased for him, to be honest. The man in the pink and blue, showing some real good strength and determination today.
He certainly is.
Dogged,
just fighting his way back in all the time, and with these, should we call them relatively short climbs still, there's always that possibility of actually getting yourself back into the mix of things. And all he's got now effectively is a 1.8 kilometer ascent. That is okay. It's probably the toughest one of the day, but still is short enough that he's not going to lose an awful lot of time. So he's still thinking about potentially having himself a stage win.
It's interesting, Maggie. There's a lot of principal names that you'd expect to be functioning at the highest in a Grand Tour who really want to find out how they're going at the moment, and Quintana's just rolled up behind Sky here, and he's just sort of having a look around to see who's here. Pierre-Roger Latour is also still handy. Tom Jelter-Slagter looks like he's sizing up the day likewise, Magnus, in the green dead centre.
Well, there's quite a few of the guys here now who's sort of starting to see who's looking good, who's looking like they've got some legs left on them, and Yeah, when are we going to actually have a proper go?
When should we have a punch-up? And the answer, I don't know. Aru tried to draw something a little bit later. Contador's just next to him. You can also see Rui Costa of Lampre-Merida, the Portuguese champion. And Sky still just holding with it. And it's a minute for the men who are up the road. And you look at them right now on the left-hand side of your screen as they take the penultimate categorised climb with 17.8 kilometres to go. Take a little turn. It's a short, sharp descent, and the rain's starting to come. If it really does burst, you can see it in the valley. It's already raining properly down there. It may well hamper them for the long descent which they have off the final climb today, and they'll be on to that last climb very, very quickly, Magnus. It's a short, flat run before they get to it.
Yeah, it's just a quick dip and falls flat for a couple of kilometres before we have the next very steep section, and 57 seconds. It's very much doable for a bunch if they decide to race it. Landa now getting himself rid of his arm warmers, time to actually go proper racing, and I like that idea that some of the guys that they know that when it's racing and we're really going for it, then you strip yourself down to racing kit, and
it's the equivalent of hold my coat, isn't it?
Yeah. It is exactly.
Before you go for a punch up.
Yeah.
Left-hander engaging the descent, and it's Sky that take it on first. Let's see. They've gone out to just over a minute. These guys can pick their lines. It's very, very short, this descent. They sort of go into what is a bowl. You can see the mountains almost look like a theatrical curtain all the way around us. And in fact, we take a huge turn right now, do we not? Nice on board pictures for you with 16.4 to go. They're going to be climbing in about 2 kilometres. Right at the bottom of this we have a little short flat section, and then we race into it.
And that is such a lovely thing for them to do as well, is to drop and have this descent where you don't actually, it's technical enough for you not to be on the pedals at any point and actually put any pressure into it. So your legs are going a bit cold, going a little bit stiff from the effort that you've just done, and then all of a sudden they decide to turn you straight into this 15%, 13% monster of a climb, which means it's twice as hard for your legs.
Vicioso really did suffer on that last climb. He's just about to be taken by the peloton. The remainder of his breakaway companions are up the road, still by 57 seconds from the leader's jersey, and you can see the leader's jersey in position 4 of the chasers that we're looking at right now. So, who else is likely to have a go? What about Galopin today? You see him looking a little bit busy as well. He was one of those that you would have naturally have picked, perhaps, for a day like this. It might still well come his way. He's a quick finisher, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is.
In the red of Lotto Soudal, by the way, just in front of Tinkoff.
Yeah. No, they got a couple of good finishes in Lotto Soudal, and I guess the question is going to be who makes it up over the next steep climb, and which the breakaway now.
Yeah,
and Valens
goes. He does, and finds a little bit of space where none appeared to exist, maxing at 28%. This is proper, and it's going to hurt. And Valens, every time he's gone for the explosion like this, it hasn't lasted that long. Let's see how long this one does. Valens about to take a turn, motorcycle making an absolute nuisance of himself, just almost forcing the rider to the middle of the road to get by. That car surely not going to try and get by. Well, he's busy hitting the horn. What he needs to do is just stop and forget about it.
Well, if he does that though, then he stops and causes a massive carnage with the bunch that's going to come in any second here now. So they shouldn't have let any of the cars in here. They should just be motorbikes.
But there are runoff spaces, so you can basically just stop and get out of the race. It's simple as that. There you can see in the corners, just dispatch yourselves. You got into the wrong place at the wrong time. Here we go, Sky still mobbing the road, and it's easy to do that level of control, Magnus. Tinkoff just bursting through here. Is it Contador that's going for it?
Yep.
Certainly looked that way, didn't it, with his rolling shoulders. 18% now we're hitting, and this really does hurt, and I'm afraid Wellens feels like he's got an anchor. It is Kreuziger that's gone for it. There's Contador a little bit further back. He's in about P8, as you can see. Rolling with it nonetheless. Contador style. He's about P7 now. He's just coming up to the yellow jersey, sails by. That's Perito Rodriguez, who's also here. Joaquin Rodriguez, former winner of this race, of course, but and indeed defending champion. But Sky still very much in control, not panicking yet, keeping the tempo on the incline. And that's Pinot that's just coming through for Francis de Jeux, rolling through towards the 4 as well. Fascinating stuff. So many punches today to have been taken, and they're still sticking with it, believing that they can get this back, maybe on the long descent, and it can't come soon enough. Wellens is hanging in here with the breakaway, but it's Luis Angel Mate that leads them up for Cofidis just for the time being. And this is time to go in, I guess, and have some fun if you want to. Galopin would love to team up with Wellens. That could be a real duo for them out front. And just looking to see, in fact,
Luis
where...
Verbeek.
Yeah, exactly. For Vike has a look into the eyes. And they're a little bit further back as well. What about Cataldo for today for Astana, if it's not going to be Aru? No?
No, I don't think Cataldo is in there anymore, to be honest.
Well, we'll have a check back, and if they do reassemble themselves, and it looks like that may well be the case. 51 seconds though they've still got, and first over the top is Carlos Verona. Well, there you are. Now it's starting to tempt them, Magnus. They are starting to roll the dice, and rolling with it, of course, is Quintana as well.
But they've lost Landa.
Wow, there he is. And but
where is he?
We've got a gentleman here who's making a slight nuisance of himself. Landa is about
right at the back end of that group there.
Yeah, about 20th at the moment, 18-20, that kind of thing. The breakaway have practically done their job for the day. If they can hold this, they might still have an option. And Wellens is still fighting to get back on to Verona. The two originals from the original breakaway, of which we had 6 or 7 attempts. More than that, maybe. 2 real breakaways did stick before, both wound back, and then the final breakaway that did make it today. These are the only 2 that were in all the breaks today. They've been so busy from the very, very start.
They certainly have worked very hard indeed, and Tim Wellens is doing a great job again trying to catch back up to Carlos Verona. Not too far to go now onto the top of this particular climb. Should crest round about...
I think I've got about a kilometre to go.
Yeah, still about a kilometre to go.
Yeah, and it gets very, very nasty still. Verona, the Spaniard, only 23 years of age. He's been reasonably busy, but this would be a huge result for him today if he can get it. He was 6th on the stage of the Vuelta last year, and that was a decent day for him. But still, being a youngster, this would just be certainly one to write home about. It was the run into Cercadia last year. Look at this now. This is 19% and more, and Wellens is still managing to stick with it.
Yeah, this is the really steep part, the 28% section, and you can see these guys are actually struggling to get themselves going up here. And look, here comes the bunch. That's Henao having a go at the front for Sky, really putting the pressure on.
Oh, the brakes nearly caught, and it still says 38 seconds because of the incline that we're dealing with. 19% average, but as Magnus was saying, pitching up towards 28. You can see how steep this is. These are elite athletes, we remind you, at the highest level of cycling. This should not be as much trouble as it is. And you saw the torque of the back wheel slip there for Henao. And that's how difficult this is, but he manages to stay in, immediately plonks himself straight back in the saddle. There's Contador versus Quintana at the moment. Mano a mano, looking at each other, wanting to test each other. You're going to see more of this in the Grand Tours today, and the grind goes on with Perito also joining in the fun. Oh, this is amazing. What an incline to take on a day like this.
Yeah, definitely, with the wet conditions as well. You can see Landa was slipping with his wheel as well. Every time he got out the seat, he kind of loses traction. You've got to hang himself back a little bit more on the bike and get more weight over the back wheel to get any traction. It's a bit like riding wet cobblestones, but what a move by Henao.
Fantastic. Kelderman also involved here, and just Sink, so top and tail of their team. You can see as well the Portuguese champion still involved. Aru staying with it. He's having a very, very good day today, and everyone else. This is debris we're seeing right here, right now.
Yeah, Simon Yates is in there as well, just getting over the top now, going around the corner.
Good to see Simon still in with a shout. Serge Powell's in the mix here, and there's the leader, and this is bye-bye, I think, for Mikel Landa, unless he can make he clearly will have said to his teammates, look, just go for it, go for it. Let's think about the team and not about me in this jersey. Somebody else could take it. And you never know. Sergio now tomorrow when we get to the mountains, the big Queen stage, that could be it. 13.7 kilometres to go. What a day. Look at this debris on the mountain. And these guys have made it over. Verona and Wellens, they've still got a gap. Magnus, it's downhill for much of the way. There's a small testy climb still to be had. It's only 7% though. They've got to believe that they've done a good job. But then again, so has Contador and Quintana and Rodriguez in the overall.
Yeah, and this is where you make the real big damage as well, where Contador has just now decided, okay, full gas, I'm just going to get onto the pedals here. When you're coming up a climb like that, you've been on to such high torque for such a long period of time, and then you get into still a good climbing stretch with probably about 5 to 7% on a bigger road. Contador just keeping the pressure on and has now brought back Serio Henao as well. So these guys get yourself organised quite quickly now, and you got an opportunity to really set this open up this race.
Wellens tagged, as you can see. Likewise Verona. Verona's decided he doesn't like this company. He's gone off. Wellens hasn't got the strength to go with him, unfortunately. So this now is one rider up the road. That's Carlos Verona. And then this group, which includes Henao, Contador and Quintana. Well, we thought it might be a shakeout, but I didn't expect, to be honest, that much cream to rise to the top. And boy, oh boy, what a fighting force this has been, and no wonder Verona doesn't want to be part of it. Away he goes. Tim Wellens then has been tagged by the GC contenders for this race. Wellens not a GC contender now, he's so far down the order, but Verona almost sees his breakaway ambitions crumble, and he's decided to go on a long one right now.
Well, why not? The other guys were looking at each other and trying to work out what to do, and I think Tim Wellens has just decided, no, look, I'm playing the tactical game of getting myself onto the wheel of these guys, so I still believe that they will chase Carlos Verona down, so I'm going to play the stage win, whereas I think Carlos Verona still thinking about a stage win, but has also got a half head into his potential GC aspirations, because it's only 5 minutes and 15 seconds down on the general classification as of this morning.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's got everything to ride for.
He has. He needs some space. Wellens saying, I'm not working, you guys do it. Wellens still eyeballing everybody, nobody giving him a second glance. They know he's a danger, at least for the stage, but it's not too bad overall. And here comes Quintana, who wants to engage the descent. We saw him do this last year, in fact 2 years ago. He's absolutely outstanding, especially in grizzly conditions. He doesn't mind it at all, and it's Contador that eases up just a little bit. I always think that Quintana's given to taking a few more risks at moments like this. It's bitten him on occasion, but he is a brave man and goes for it right now, and it's Wellens that's guiding him down, suddenly refining a bit of drive.
And obviously Nairo Quintana's sort of centre of gravity is only about 2 centimetres above the sort of the floor.
Yeah, he's a little guy, a whippy guy, but
yeah,
he can still get found out. I've seen him take a tumble. I remember the time trial, of course, as well, where he really got bitten on the Giro in dampish conditions as well. It's damp right now. He seems to have put that in the back of his mind. Verona is thinking down the road, and he is engaging properly. 11.2 kilometres from home. There's one final climb to take. It's not categorised, by the way, but nonetheless it is 7%, and he's got to do that on his own. It peaks with 1 kilometre only, 1.2 kilometres I should say, from the end, and so he will be on it with about 3k's out. You'll see him climbing. 3k's out, he'll start climbing. Are these guys minded to chase him? I don't think they are. So he's got a chance here, Verona, but it's about this descent for him.
Yeah, I think Verona has to keep on pressing on this descent and try and build up a bit of an advantage, because 6 seconds, if the guys, these three riders, Contador, Quintana and Henao, decide that they actually want to work a bit together.
Wellens explodes. He decides, yeah, I've had enough of you guys, you're not going to do any help. And they're not bothered. They're not bothered because he's so far down the order. This is about the title, but others do have a care about today.
There's Marte coming back.
Wow, there we are. Luis Angel sails through, bullies it, gets a beep from the motorcycle, and indeed the motorcycle driver, we'll call him, just putting a foot down just in in case he was to lose it on the corner. He's beeping away, trying to get away, but and there's plenty of other traffic wants to come through. Likewise riders, as you can see, and it's a big old train that's sailing down right now, and good to see Jessing and Kelderman here from Lotto-Jumbo NL. It's not over by any means, this.
No, definitely not, but what a mistake, I think, by the three favourites there. They could have really put themselves in a strong position if they continued to work well together. Interesting one here with a motorbike having to try and get himself out of the way, but did very well in just kind of following the line for the rider, so that he actually made himself part of the group rather than trying to sort of get into any funny sort of apexes and mess the riders about.
Yeah, indeed. Tommy's factor also involved here. A big turn coming in right now. You've got to be careful, and we've seen those often benign looking turns that tighten up, looking they get worse very, very quickly, Magnus.
Yeah, definitely. But also we've got going around here now with an awful lot of trees about as well, which kind of makes life a bit more sketchy. You don't quite know how much grip you actually got on the tarmac, but it actually looks a bit more dry down here.
Yeah, it does, just drying out. I think they've had a bit of wind today, and when you come out from underneath the tree cover, you see the road gets paler where it's evaporated. The gap, though, doing anything but. This man is doing a decent job. I'm waiting to see any subsequent pictures just behind him. Unfortunately, we're not there just yet, but no declaration of a gap, and I think there's a big push coming on with Luis Angel Mate driving into this one. He's certainly aware that there's more than just a motorcycle, I think, on his case. Still pushing into it. We've got no count down to the line either. As we go, 8Ks we're hearing on race radio is what we've got. So Magnus, he's got about 5 to go, 13 seconds, there we are, 7.9 now. So 12 seconds, I don't know, it keeps bouncing all over the place. We've seen that sort of margin being held by the likes of Sagan recently, but it's a bigger ask for this man, I think, considering who are chasing him down.
Well, I think that was a completely different setup with only 2 riders chasing, whereas here we've got a whole bunch, and an awful lot of riders who are quite keen now on trying to get a stage win, because they've got themselves back into the race again after Contador and Quintana and now decided to have a bit of a look at each other rather than actually go racing. Wow.
We've got another camera bike. Just
7K to go.
Yeah, exactly. 7K only. Just coming through. He's got security outriders to guide him, but there's very little gap between himself and the chasers. About 7 seconds was our last call. And so let's see how he goes. He just needs to think about the road ahead, but it's going to be a rocky one for him, especially when he gets to this climb. And here we have some proper chasers. Luis Angel Mate. Can't quite see
Tim Wellens.
He's got back in. Wellens. Oh, brilliant work by Wellens. So still not giving up Tim Wellens. And he's got Mate as well, who was part of that original breakaway, who's now refound himself. 6.5 to go, 9 seconds they've got. Well, credit to the breakaway for not giving up even with this narrow margin.
Yeah, well, I think Tim Wellens went right at the perfect moment, and Mate came through on the very, very last split second to actually get a gap on the bunch. I just want to know whether what the gap is back to the bunch, if that is the 15-16 seconds from Carlos to the what is left of the peloton, or whether it's actually a 15-second gap to the 2 chasing riders.
I guess we're going to find out right now as we come past this area of aggregate and scrap metal. I don't know. It was a grisly old day. It's still got a lot of bite to it, I'm afraid. I'm going to take this right-hander on dry road. It looks like it's back to the chasers, Magnus. We've got nothing to say anything else at the moment, in which case Verona did an absolutely outstanding descent. Let's have a look. No, there we are. It's back to the GC contenders who are still engaged. So there goes Wellens and Mate. Where are the rest? Here they come. Well, that's surely not Perito. Looking down, and it looks too big for him. We'll see. That looks like Aru. It could be Spilak indeed, and I don't know who the chaser is from Trek. And here are the main body of the contenders, including Quintana and Contador. The way they rode up that incline, Magnus, it bodes for a very, very dramatic day tomorrow, does it not? I think we've got a club rider out.
No, that was one of the Cahill riders, just obviously some way off the back.
Yes. Riding home a number of jerseys. He's certainly not part of this particular part of the race. We have been on a circuit today. There's Pinot just latching on, as you can see, from Francis Leger. Great effort by him. Good to see Pinot functioning high here as well.
Well, just going into the final 3 kilometers, we got about a kilometre of 7% of climbing from 2,700 odd meters up to about 1,700 meters to go from the line, and then we drop down for effectively 700-800 meters before it gets flat again for the last 500 meters. So it's still not over, and it's quite a difficult final.
It is, and I think we may well have rather a selective group on this next climb. It depends on what sort of pace Tim Wellens, Luis Angel Mate from Cofidis, and indeed Carlos Verona at the moment, who's still out there and on his own. He could do with a bit of help, to be honest. With such a narrow gap back to Wellens and Mate, you'd think he'd hang back, but I think he really fears Wellens. Let's see.
He's got nothing to lose here now. He's just got to commit and keep on pushing on as hard as he can. And these guys are certainly doing that.
And so there is Aru, there is Pinot as they come into town as well. Very good work by Aru today. He's pushed on when he's needed to, and in fact he's shown that he's with the best. And here we are, bit of arguing then. Tim Wellens and Luis Angel Mate already talking to each other. I think Wellens saying, come on, let's ride together, and Mate just saying, forget it. Carlos Verona is there as well out front. The trio from the break, Magnus.
Well, if in this position I would have gone very quickly back up to Carlos Verona's back wheel and just gone for a full-blown attack again, because Verona's gone max to try and stay away, and he will be in some serious oxygen at the moment, and if you had anything left, then this would be the moment to go.
He can regather himself, particularly hiding within that trio up front. Don't forget the chasers. It's Aru and Pinot on their case at the moment, and it's only 15 seconds gap, and they've got this climb to take on it. It's not overly difficult, 7%, but it's going to be wearing, that's for sure. Once they get to the top, 700 meters down, and then 500 flat. I don't think Tim Wellens is worried within this trio. I think he's probably still got something left in the bank. That's the only reason I could think he didn't do what you said, Magnus.
No, but the problem is that they're not going hard enough to stay away from these guys and chasing them down. They needed to. At the moment, they're just looking at each other, and they haven't got that amount of time to play with.
It's not a luxury that's at their disposal, and it's again Verona that picks himself up. First to chase on is Tim Wellens. Mate engages as well, and finally they found a bit of pace, but it's all too late. They've only got 3 seconds, as you can see. Motorcycle's going to move to one side, and you get other riders coming through. 23 seconds back to the yellow jersey. Well, if the yellow jersey on Mikel Landa managed to get back in here, can't see him just for the time being. Yes, he is. He's there within the body of this group. Good work then.
Well, definitely good work. Kreuziger now giving it a very big turn on the front, and is just bringing back the final couple of riders here.
There we are. They messed it up, and they will be arguing with each other, and Wellens will think of that as a chance missed, I am absolutely certain. And so they drive into the final climb, and Perito's also here, actually, wants to be part of it. I think the LottoNl-Jumbo boys of Kelderman and Jesting have got a big option here today. Let's see how they get over this climb. And coming back into it goes Henao. He sails up on the inside, also still very much part of this. Reichenbach is back in here, and there's the leader. There is the leader's jersey. Good work, strong work as well by a worthy leader of this race, Mikel Landa.
Yeah, he's definitely going very well indeed. And
look at this.
Here we go. Contador is having a cup.
He's digging in. It's only 7%, but this is about his own condition as well, don't forget.
Yeah, Sammy Sanchez is going after him, though not quite got the legs, but look at Henao. How strong is Henao?
Yeah, and looks relaxed as well. He put so much pace into that. You saw the torque going through the back wheel on the steepest section where his wheel split. And on that point, he actually had to start freewheeling into the curve because he'd actually put so much in. I think it's here for Henao to take Contador, at least at this moment. Whether Contador will let him go or not is anybody's guess. Oh, look at this. Roll into it, why don't you? And Sammy Sanchez just goes the other side of the road, heads over to the left-hand side and doesn't want to give a wheel to anybody. He's weaving all over the place. Oh, this is great stuff. Rui Costa as well, very much engaged with the fun, and he's still rattling here. Oh, big power, big heart, and he's sprinting across the crest.
And he's such a good descender as well, so if this is ever so slightly technical on the way down in, he's got an outside chance of staying away. We've got to remember, when we get down to the bottom here, it's 500 metres of flat, and he's at the line. So
Flamme Rouge any moment now. It's going to be part of this descent. 700 metres down. There it is. Flamme Rouge right now. Has he done it?
Watch out for the man in the pink helmet, though. Rui Costa, very, very fast in the finish, and certainly this type of a finish as well when it's been so hard leading up to this.
Well, Sammy Sanchez will be aware of that, but what a time to go. Has he gauged it absolutely perfectly? And now's on his case. As you can see, Sammy Sanchez and that pink helmet. He wears the white-ish character jersey of the Portuguese national champion, and he's going to stretch his legs, that's for sure, and I think he's decided to go for it right now. We're heading for the flatter section. You've got to go for it if you're going to have an option. Big turn coming up right now. Here we are.
Big turn, wet turn as well, so this is going to be difficult for everyone to stay upright and come around this corner and then kick for it.
And they do. Can't quite see. Is it Farlene who's made it over? Beg your pardon for Trek, not quite sure. May have missaw it. Oh, look, Sammy Sanchez hits a sleeping policeman. Is he away? It's the wreckage behind him, I'm afraid, as he takes the curve. Not quite there just yet, but he's going to get there. Sammy Sanchez with a big heart and a perfect piece of strategy. We still wait. No pictures. Goodness me, is he going to get caught? No, he's going to make it. Brilliant work. Great take it was by him. Wow, and it was indeed Rui Costa, the Portuguese champion, finishing in second place today. What a skirmish that was. The leader comes across the line right now. Not too much damage for those behind within this group, but boy, oh boy, you've got to be able to climb, you've got to be able to rock with the punches, you've got to be able to descend and sprint. This race has got everything. Tomorrow it's the Queen stage and then the climbing time trial. What more could you possibly want? Wow.
What a move by Sammy Sanchez. That was a very, very gutsy attack and a gutsy ride, and see, he's one of these very, very, very much liked riders. So Purito comes over and says, well, you know, fantastic, well done. And that just goes to show a guy that's always working hard, working for his team, and is now given the opportunity to go for it. And a few riders have written Sammy Sanchez off a year or two ago, but the man is back and he's going well.
He's going supremely well, isn't he? Look at this. We had to wait a long time for that picture to reveal itself and the chasers. And when it came, he had the gap. Just watch the pink helmet there, indeed, of the Portuguese national champion, just getting himself into a good position as well, Rui Costa. Runner-up on the day, but select groups and big gaps thrown up today as well, Magnus.
Well, there's quite a few riders ended up losing a bit of time on this one, but look at that. How much does that mean to Sammy Sanchez?
A lot. Nice to see. Well, another great day. We're almost having too much fun, Magnus, in this race. Sanchez takes it ahead of Rui Costa, Warren Barguil, Viamos and Luis Henao, your top 5 today. Now watch the ST there, same time. There are some gaps that have been thrown up, and indeed if we get the rest of the finishing order on this 4th stage, looks like they're not going to provide it to us, unfortunately. There'll be some proper gaps opened up. Tomorrow those gaps will turn into huge chasms, I think.
There is potential that may happen, yes.
Sammy Sanchez wrestles the bike home, bringing his golden shoes to the line first. Good work. Good race this, Magnus.
Certainly is, and it certainly throws a few interesting moves into things. And like you said, a couple of riders not quite on the top form just yet, which makes life even more interesting.
Sammy Sanchez takes the day. In fact, the top 10 all given the same time here. Seems unkind. It looks like there were some gaps there, but nonetheless keeps it alive. Costa, Barguil, Villamos, Henao, Quintana, Contador, Kelderman, Lawson Craddock doing a great job, and Joaquim Rodriguez rounding out the top 10. Some fabulous names to conjure with there. Great day ahead of us as well tomorrow. Stage 5 is the Queen's stage, don't forget. Here we are. Thibaut Pinot, Yates, Janssen, Jessink, Reichenbach, Mollard and Verweijker. Everyone else picking up another 8 seconds behind. Well, if you thought today was tough, think about tomorrow. Mikel Landa there losing 8 seconds today. May well have a new leader. Sammy Sanchez, in fact, Sammy Sanchez just missing out by, it'll be Henao, I believe, will be our leader after this.
Wasn't Kelderman in there?
We'll see.
If Kelderman was in that group,
he's laughing as well.
Then he's got the jersey.
It started this morning with Landa 1 second clear of Kelderman, 5 seconds clear of Henao. I don't believe he was. I believe it's Henao, but we will see in a few moments' time when we get confirmation. Nonetheless, a change of our leader. Well, the wide shot often begs a general classification. It is Kelderman. He was there. Apologies. Kelderman leads this race, 4 seconds clear of Henao. Mikel Landa, Sammy Sanchez in 4th place ahead of Alberto Contador. We have got a race, Magnus. This is great.
This is definitely very interesting. Tomorrow is going to be a big one, and then the time trial is going to shake things up a bit further again.
So your top 10 blanketed by just 14 seconds. It could come down to the final stage individual time trial, which has an unkind lump of 10% almost from the very off, and more. There we are. It doesn't really spin out beyond the 20-second mark until well down the order. Plenty still in contention. Plenty of racing still to be had, with 2 stages remaining here in the Basque Country. Wow. Well, the shrimp fishermen are in in the house, as you can see. And this is the owner, 38 years of age, this Spaniard. As Magnus was saying, you get some unkind questions once you get to your mid-30s. He's turning the clock back, and old golden shoes today. He skipped home. What a job. Well, just looking at these gaps, and in fact the gaps have not been kind to our winner Sammy Sanchez. Let's see if there was a perceived gap. I think that could have been declared elsewhere. There we are. It looks like a proper gap to me on the timing line. Maybe his celebration denied him the lead here. That was deemed to be no gap at all by the timekeepers. I wonder if there'll be an amendment. Maybe they want it to be a full second, I'm not sure, but there you go. Nonetheless, Kelderman, who was just to the rear of that group, is our leader apparently, unless there are any amendments later on. Nonetheless, very close, Magnus, and it's going to be so tomorrow. There you are, confirmation, same time given. And that crucial finish by Kelderman in 8th place, getting the same time, finishing just behind Alberto Contador, means that he is our race leader by a margin of just 4 seconds over Henao, who finished 5th today. I'm liking it.
I'm liking it too. It's going to be an intriguing stage tomorrow, with an awful lot of attacking to be done, and there's a few riders here now who's certainly not going to be very happy with the overall results the way it sits.
And a downhill run off the only categorized 1 climb tomorrow, all the way to the line. That's going to be hairy, and especially if the rain which is forecast does indeed arrive. Nothing certain in this race. Mikel Landa finds himself 8 seconds down in the general classification. It's not all over for him though.
No, definitely not. It's still an awful lot to ride for, and the time trial is going to be the key one, I think, for all of these guys.
There we are then, and it looks like we are unfortunately rather delayed today. I imagine that Sammy Sanchez is being held by our friends at Spanish television for rather longer than we were expecting, so it may well be we have to take our leave before we have a chance to hear from him, I'm afraid. Well, we're getting some lovely views of the condos that are available. Here are your overall standings. Wilco Kelderman is the leader, ahead of Serio Henao by 4 seconds. Landa 7 seconds down. Sammy Sanchez 8 seconds adrift for now, and some big names within 50.